This interview is a paid advertisement. It was produced on behalf of the company and is considered investor relations activity under Canadian securities law. All statements and opinions are those of the guest and should not be construed as investment advice. Please do your own due diligence or consult a registered investment advisor.
Hello and welcome to the Gold Newsletter channel. My name is Kai Hoffman. I'm the JR mining guy over on X. And of course, with your good friend Brian London, I'm your host of the Gold Newsletter channel. And I'm really looking forward to this company introduction. If you're not sleeping under a rock, you might have noticed that silver has been gaining some momentum. The silver mining stock and exploration stocks have been trending higher. And the company we're introducing to you today has also been a benefactor of that trend. It's Kootenay Silver. The company just recently raised $20 million in an upsized financing. And we will be talking with President and CEO Jim McDonald about how they plan to use that money. What are the plans for the company? They already have a very solid resource base. They just announced another resource not too long ago. And we'll talk about the upcoming drill program. 50,000 meters have been announced. So use of proceeds is clear. But what is it going to get them? What is the goal? What is the business plan? And what are they trying to achieve here? Really, really interesting company. Looking forward to the discussion with Jim. But before I switch over to my guest, hit that like and subscribe button. Free way to support our channel. It also helps to reach a wider investor audience. So if you're an investor of Kootenay Silver, hit that like and subscribe button, and the video will be shared with other investors as well. So thanks so much for doing that. Now, Jim, it is great to have you on the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, Kai, great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, really looking forward to the introduction to the company here and just catching up in general because we've known each other for a while, Jim. It'd be good to get an overview of what's going on. But before we get to some of the details, Jim, give us a 60-second elevator pitch of the company and why should we own Kootenay Silver right now?
Okay, so Kootenay Silver, we own a huge resource base in the ground of silver, so kind of like a silver bank. We've made 4 discoveries in our time in Mexico. We're an explorer specifically looking for silver deposits. And so we have in 4 different deposits now measured indicated 214 million ounces of silver equivalent. And then in an inferred category, another 109 million in the inferred. And that includes our newest discovery called Columba, which is our best discovery to date. It alone has 54 million ounces. Wide open for expansion. That's what we raised the money on, is to go back and drill and increase the size of the Columba assets. So we give a lot of leverage to the silver price. People invest in us just because of that sort of silver bank in the ground, but also because of this explosive, exciting upside in the new Columba discovery that we have, that we're just starting to drill again now.
Fantastic. Jim, really appreciate the overview. We'll get to Columba and the upside, of course, and the upside potential here in a minute. But second question I usually like to ask during the company interview or introductions is just capital structure. What does it look like? You've just raised $20 million. Run us a bit through that structure.
Yeah, so right now issued 81.5 million shares issued. And we've got significant shareholders like Eric Sprott. We've got Sprott Asset Management funds involved. We've got large European resource investing funds involved as well. And so really well structured that way. In addition to the institutional ownership that we have, there are approximately 8,000 or 9,000 retail shareholders that we know about. So we get a lot of retail as well. And then on the warrant side, not including the last financing, but prior to that, there were 17 million warrants, and they are expiring from November of this year, 2025, to May of 2026 at strike prices that vary from $1.10 to $1.68. So there's a lot of potential money in the table there for us in addition. And our average daily volume over the last 90 days is approximately close to 600,000 shares a day right now. And because of that silver bank in the ground, you see our stock price react pretty quickly and correlate very well with the silver price action. And so silver is obviously, it's been breaking out here big time in the last several weeks, and then our volume really picked up, and our stock price is turning up pretty nicely at the same time.
Yeah, I know stock price ticked up really, really well, and your financing was at $1.05, I saw. Let's talk about that financing. You took in $20 million just recently. Break that down for us. Like who came in, and I'm really curious if the generalists have been jumping on the bandwagon here already.
Yeah, so we are seeing generalists come into the sector. That's for sure, and you see it. It's just not our stock. A lot of silver stocks and some very, very large financings, even much bigger than ours, where generalist funds were definitely coming in. And so our financing in particular, we had people like Eric Sprott in there. We had Sprott Asset Management in there. We had Good to Gold 2000 funds in there. And then a lot of different other funds, through North America and Europe as well. And then high net worth people. And there's also some, in addition to that, some retail.
And Eric Sprott, Condier, you mentioned in your presentation as some of the bigger shareholders, the individual shareholders. Have they been supportive in the financing, Jim?
Yeah, so Eric participated in this last financing. Yes, Condier's really shifted focus. They're not doing too much in the junior mining company sector anymore, but they do continue to hold the stock.
No, fantastic. Awesome. Jim, before we get to the use of proceeds, we need to talk history of the company real quick. And I think the history sort of ties also to the business plan and what you're trying to achieve. Run us a bit through it, because I've known you for at least 10 years, Jim. Run us a bit through the history of the company, and what's the general idea? What are you trying to achieve, Jim?
Yeah, so we started out as a prospecting venture, and it went into Mexico over 20 years ago because of the exploration potential there. My introduction to Mexico was when we had another junior company that we were looking for a gold deposit at the bottom of the gold market, and that was in the year 2000. And we got into this bidding process for one that is called Mulatos, and Placer Dome Kennecott were selling it, and we actually acquired it through the process. Then we had to finance it. Gold was $280. Nobody wanted to finance. Long story short, brought in John McCluskey and Chester Miller, who had another junior company, to help us finance the acquisition. And 2 years later, that became Alamos Gold. And I stepped off that board about another 8 or 9 years after that. That was my introduction to Mexico. And it was absolutely incredible to go into the country that had all this 500 years of mining history, but yet there's these projects just sitting there waiting to be developed, projects that haven't been drilled yet, even though they've been mined historically in the past, no modern work on them. Columba discovery is a classic example of this. And so we've turned our focus into Mexico a long time ago. We've made those discoveries, as I've mentioned, in Mexico. And our objective is to advance these projects to discovery, resource stage, build the resource, take it down the road to PEA, and find a buyer, for the project. Where our team and our management team and board of directors that has experience, we've done all aspects of this industry, from the grassroots discovery stage right to the mine building and operating mines and financing all the steps along the way. So we do have that experience, but our objective is to be a seller for Kootenay. Kootenay Silver has been set up to be a seller of discoveries.
No, really appreciate that. A really good overview of the business plan, Jim, so we know where things are headed. Let's talk use of proceeds. Let's talk Columba maybe first. Give us a bit of an overview of Columba, because I'm assuming, and I'm making an assumption here, Jim, that most of the money that you've raised will be going towards Columba here, into the 50,000 meter total program. But give us an overview of the asset first, please.
Yeah, your assumption is correct. We picked up the opportunity, the option to get involved in this project in late 2018 November, and we had 4 years of staged payments and time to explore it and see if we wanted to actually acquire it. And now we own 100%, and we've made a very, very significant discovery. And what attracted us, there's a few really important things here that we're going to touch on now. The fact it was mined twice historically in the past, the fact that it is almost entirely preserved from erosion and that it had never been drilled before by anyone before we started drilling. And in fact, when we arrived and started working on the project, there'd been nothing done or nearly nothing done in terms of exploration in 40 years. Just an incredible situation. And so it was mined 1900 to 1910. They put down a couple of shafts, one main one, 200-meter depth, long. Yeah, that's quite a shaft way back then. 7 levels off, got into production, shut down by the Mexican Revolution. Then mid-20th century, 1958, 1960, a small private company came in, did a little mining using that old development, left the project. Then another company called Louisman, which eventually became Wheaton River, optioned the project, dewatered the old mine, did a bunch of sampling, acquired another project that was operating elsewhere, and left the project. Then nothing happens for almost 40 years. We got attracted to the property because of the historic assays from that mine in those 6 tunnels. They showed just silver values very consistent along the length of those tunnels. And it was almost too good to be true. Like it could actually be this consistent and some really high grades. So we quite liked that. The mine was flooded again. We couldn't get in directly to confirm, but we satisfied ourselves with the work we did on the surface and scant historic records. It's probably accurate, and it certainly turned out to be. More important, that's what we call the F vein, the old historic one. But more importantly, we've found since then, drilling other veins, that other veins are even better, especially what we call the D, like delta vein. And it contains about 60% of the ounces that we have so far. So just an incredible vein and wide widths in this system. And another really important feature, and very excellent continuity along the length of these veins and these mineralized chutes in terms of grade. Really good widths. When you have good widths, your costs and everything else, it benefits everything, but basically it improves your margins when you get into a mining situation. And I mentioned that it's barely been eroded. This is like a geologist's dream. It's a classic textbook epithermal vein system, classic Mexican system, but preserved, almost entirely preserved. So you got the very tip top of this vein system exposed, barely exposed at the erosion low on the property, which is an old volcano. So you've got an old volcano sitting here in the old caldera. That's the erosional low. And down there, you just barely see the top of your veins. So when you head up on the sides of that mountain anywhere, the vein disappears because it's pinched out and you're above it. You can follow a structure and you can sample it, and you'll have maybe 5 gram gold or 1 gram or less than 1 gram. And you just see this breccia rock. But when you drill down to that erosional low where those veins are exposed and begin to form strongly and deeper, bang, the vein is there. So whatever this thing is sitting there almost the way it was deposited originally, really hasn't been eroded. Whatever was originally put down here for silver is still sitting here. And then the footprint of what we see is like 4 kilometer by 3 kilometer area. And that kind of footprint compares well with other vein districts in Mexico that have 150 million ounces to 300 million ounces. So, not new, this discovery has been building for a while, but well-known discoveries in Mexico, like Panuco with Vizsla, they're now over 300 million ounces of silver equivalent. And then the Las Chispas mine, which was just sold to Coeur, that discovery was made approximately 8 years ago and has been in production for around 3 years or so, making a lot of money. Narrow, really high-grade veins, very narrow, but very high-grade, making a lot of money. And the footprint of that vein system is very similar to what we have too. So right away we thought, okay, just scale, we've got a shot at having 100 million ounces here. Maybe it's a multiple of that when we started drilling. Now we got our maiden resource out. We're halfway to that 500,000 already. We're really happy about that maiden resource after 50,000 meters of drilling, or 53,000 meters. just did this big financing. It was oversubscribed. And now we're just getting back in with the drills to start drilling again. So we're going to do a staged program of 50,000 meters. The first roughly 25 to 30,000 meters is going to go after the resource blocks that we have, especially the D vein where 60% of the ounces are. And the reason is we're just stepping off of those resource bodies because we don't know where the edges are. We haven't found those edges yet. So just continue stepping out, increasing the volume, find the edges, find how big they are. It's real low hanging fruit, we like to say. High probability drill hits. When you're in exploration, you rate your risk. A brand new showing sitting at surface, nothing ever happens. Pretty high risk when you put your first hole in. But a situation like this, there's the resource bodies right now we've already identified. They're still open. Just keep expanding them. Keep stepping out until you find the edges. So the first stages of this are going to be really straightforward. And then we've got all the veins prioritized accordingly to very high priority, high, medium, and low. And then we'll go through that whole thing as we go.
Jim, if I understand you correctly, the plan of the 50,000 meter program is to get it to 100 million, but it's mostly expansion drilling. So you're not planning on infilling or taking it to a higher confidence level, meaning indicated at first. We're just really trying to find those edges. Is that
Yes.
That correct?
Yeah, expansion. We're really focused on expansion, and we'd be super happy if it doubled. That'd be a great, great result. And we'd be happy if it's 50% more in this next round. That'd be a very significant bump. And both those targets are realistic for us with what we're doing. So that's what we're really focused on. And so we're just starting the drilling again. There's going to be 8 to 10 months of pretty steady drill news coming out. And we'll be doing other things in the background, moving things down so we can do a PEA at the end at the appropriate time when we see enough resource size to justify it. And so we're also starting a very comprehensive metallurgical program that will run for 6 to 8 months at PEA level, so that once we get to a stage where the resource is big enough to deliver a PEA, we'll do it.
Tell us more about the program real quick. To just break it down, you talked about the D vein, and I don't want to get too technical or bogged down in details, but just where are you seeing the biggest upside on the project, and how are you doing the targeting? Just remind us of that again, Jim.
So it's a vein swarm. There's numerous veins, and there are probably close to a dozen principal vein structures that we're looking at. And out of that, there's probably 7 or 8 that are really on surface are the strongest looking ones. So the vast majority of our drilling has been done just on 3 veins. There's some holes in other veins, but the majority is on 3 veins. And the probably 85-90% of this maiden resource is in those 3 veins. 60% of it is in what we call the D vein. D vein is wide. They're all wide open expansion. D vein's really interesting. Most of the drilling is in a 250 meter vertical panel, and we have a couple of holes deeper than that. We have one hole that was a big exploration sort of wildcat. We put it down deep underneath, extending that another 300 meters below more or less the bottom of our drilling, and we hit the structure really well down there. A good wide structure, mineralized with grade. The high grade portion of the structure was a void, literally a void, like a cavern, unfortunately. But it told us that the mineral system's still strong and robust, more than twice the depth that you've even tested. Wide open for expansion down there, and then laterally as well. So a lot of the focus is going to go in just to find the bottom. We got to find the bottom there and the edges going the other way. So those 3 veins will be the focus where most of that resource is sitting, is finding the edges of everything. And the edges could be a long way away by the indications, by the little bit of deeper drilling that we have. So really interesting, because a lot of these vein systems can be limited to about 150 to 300 meters, depending if they're what you call a low sulfidation type. This looks to be probably an intermediate sulfidation type. That's our belief. Those things can be 700 meters, kilometer sometimes. So we're seeing a vertical extent of 540 meters so far, still running to depth. We haven't found the limit. So the upside here is really exciting for us. I mean, geologically, we can imagine a lot of positive developments here. And because it's really obscured, because that top edge is not, the veins are not well exposed, just because we're too high in elevation for the most part, we could run into a lot of really positive surprises in terms of hitting a vein that it doesn't even show itself at surface, and maybe puts all the other veins to shame if we're lucky.
Yeah, Jim, you're definitely making a compelling case here for Columba. It sounds really interesting. And you said the drills are turning, so I'm assuming drill results will come out in the next few weeks here. How are you planning to release the results? Are you going to batch it, and run us a bit through the strategy there, so what we can expect?
Yeah, we always put them out in batches. They're more comprehensive and more meaningful then. It's more context. And so typically we'll have 3 to 10 holes that'll come out in a batch. And so we announced a couple of weeks ago that crews were mobilizing at the end of this month. Now we're at the end of the month. The crews are on site. We're getting underway. Probably see your first results. We're end of July here, so toward the end of September, I would say, to be on the safe side, the first batch coming in.
Okay, perfect. Jim, just real short question here. Drill costs in Mexico, what are we looking at these days per meter all in?
Yeah, we're using a good general rule of thumb for us is 300 Canadian a meter.
Okay, and that's all in assays and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Jim, you got secondary assets as well. La Cigarra, Promontorio, La Negra. Any plans right now to work on those? Anything that needs to be done there?
Well, we refreshed all the resource reports and resource estimates on all 3 of those deposits in the last approximately 18 months, because we believed we're entering a strong and sustained long silver bull market, and it looks like we're officially in it now. And we wanted to have those projects brought up and the reports refreshed, so that we're using metal prices and cutoffs that are current. And so the idea is just to do that and have those projects ready so we can advance them in some manner. Maybe we sell them, maybe we advance them ourselves, or maybe we get a great JV deal with a miner to carry it forward towards production decision. Once the silver market gets going a little better developed and we can get some value there. That was the thinking approximately 2 years ago. So we set everything up to get ready for that. Pretty interesting. One of those assets, La Cigarra, on paper looks pretty compelling at these kind of high silver prices that we see, higher silver prices that we see. And we believe we're going to break the old highs, go through 50, and then go beyond to some other level that we've never seen before. But so we've set those projects up, ready to do something with them. We don't think it's the right time yet, but we're ready to do that. In the meanwhile, we're very focused on drilling off Columba, getting a maiden resource update, heading down the road to PEA.
Fantastic. Jim, while I have you, we have to talk about the Mexican mining, or the permit situation in Mexico. What does it look like? I'm hearing very positive things, meaning companies are getting issued their permits. It doesn't look as bleak as some of the investors made Mexico out to be. What is your take? What are you hearing on the street, and what are you seeing out there?
Well, we've got all our permits for drilling, and never had problems with that, even through the last 4 or 5 years. We've been in good shape with regard to that. We're with Columba, we're focused in Chihuahua State, which is one of the best mining states to be, states for mining. And the old administration, the AMLO, well, of course, was pretty antagonistic towards the industry. Now, the new administration is the same party, political party, but the leader is more receptive to the industry and more realistic about what benefits industry it brings. And there's been some very tangible changes in a positive direction. So it's an improved situation for sure, and than what it was. And like as you pointed out, the people are getting permits, things are getting moved forward. So we're hoping that direction continues.
Fantastic. Maybe last question, catalyst. Jim, it's a good summary question. What can we expect the next 6 months? Sort of summarizing what we discussed, just to make it really easy and palpable for our audience here, Jim.
Yeah, very straightforward because it's drilling. We know where our targets are. We're just stepping out, expanding the size of what's already there. There'll be some exploration style holes and some wildcat style holes further along the way on Columba. So drill on Columba. Drill results coming out over the next several months. At some point, a maiden resource update, head down the PEA path.
Any like guidance on timing for the resource update? 50,000 meters. How long do you think you'll need to chew through through those meters?
We'll be drilling the next 8 to 10 months.
Okay.
And if we're really lucky and hitting some great holes, maybe there's a resource update in between, halfway through, or let's see what happens.
Oh, fantastic. So next September, Labor Day, next 2026, we're expecting a resource update. Usually the Tuesday after Labor Day, Jim. So we can sort of earmark that. Fantastic. Jim, really appreciate you coming on here on the Gold Newsletter and running us through the new Kootenay Silver and what you've been up to here as of late, or since 2018. Like I make it sound new, but we haven't had a chance to catch up in a while. So really appreciate you coming on. And maybe last question, where can we send our audience to find more information about Kootenay?
Well, our website, which is kootenaysilver.com. And we trade on the Toronto Venture Exchange under KTN and on the QTCX KOOYF.
Perfect. Awesome. Jim, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And everybody else, thanks so much for tuning into the Gold Newsletter. Hope you enjoyed this introductory interview here with Jim McDonald. He's president and CEO over at Kootenay Silver. Let us know your thoughts down below. And if you want to share this interview with like-minded investors, we don't mind. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back with lots more here on the Gold Newsletter channel. Take care out there.